and welcome to the Wellness Hub podcast, a show dedicated to uncovering the future of healthy living. Each week, we aim to bring you content that supports your personal health journey through insightful conversations with amazing guests. We explore various topics ranging from healthy eating, technology, fitness, mindfulness, and more. Now let's join our host, Drew Munro, co-founder and CEO of UpMeals, a Vancouver-based food tech startup on a mission to make healthy meals accessible through technology.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Hub. As always, we're thrilled to have you with us for yet another edition of Wellness Wednesdays. Every single week, we're hosting amazing guests and having insightful conversations into food, technology, mindfulness, entrepreneurship, and more. And as always, we hope you find these conversations valuable and insightful on your own wellness journey. Our conversation tonight will center around a big idea: food as a social enterprise. Let that sink in for a moment. The idea that food can be something more than just fuel for our bodies is an idea that we're all familiar with, or perhaps have even experienced at some point in our lives. But turning that idea into an entire functioning business is a whole other story. What if food could not only be delicious and nourishing to our bodies, but a vehicle to provide financial independence, social integration, and employment opportunities? Our spec done just that through her company, Tayybeh, with their mission to empower women newcomers to Canada and share their uniquely delicious Syrian cuisine. We're going to learn more about her incredible background in academia and humanitarian work, the story of her coming to Canada, and her business journey, launching her company from humble beginnings to the social enterprise that it is today. And lastly, we'll talk about what the future holds for her and her company's mission. And as we discuss these very important topics, a reminder, please comment with your questions on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, or wherever you're watching. We will be answering audience questions all throughout the show. So without further ado, please welcome our special guest this evening, the founder of Taipei Foods, Nihal Elwan. Nihal, welcome to the Wellness Hub.
Thank you, Drew. It's nice to see you again, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, I think something that I want to start with is your background. I think a lot of our listeners would be very interested in learning more. In fact, before moving to Vancouver, you worked in international development. You working with UNICEF, the UN, as a consultant for World Bank. I'd love to share a little bit more about your career before Tayybeh and the projects you were involved in.
Okay. Before Taipei, I worked for about 15 years in international development for various organizations, as you mentioned, various UN organizations such as the UNICEF, UNDP, the International Labour Organization. I worked for the World Bank as a researcher, a qualitative researcher, and a professional working on projects and research focusing on employment, health, education, and so on, with women and gender issues being a cross-cutting theme in all of these projects that I was involved in. And I started off working in Egypt. I'm originally from Egypt. A lot of people are surprised that I'm not Syrian. I started off working in Egypt, and I've moved on to working in different countries around the region. And then I moved on to Washington, D.C. and still worked on the Middle East while I was there as well.
Amazing. And one thing that's so evident to me and to really anyone that knows your story and the story of Tayybeh is that you've always been a passionate champion and advocate for women's rights. So tell me a little bit, where did that source of passion come from? When did you know that you wanted to devote yourself to this very important cause?
I can't say I can't pinpoint a certain phase where I said this is what I would be focusing on. I think it's a result of my perhaps upbringing. I grew up in Egypt, in a society that is somewhat patriarchal, one would say, but I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family and an environment where my brother and I were 100% equals on every level. The expectations were the same, the duties were the same. We were both expected to work hard, be excel academically, and at the same time, the choices that we were given were pretty much the same. And quickly enough, I became aware that I was privileged in this way, but not every woman in society or in let's say this culture had the same choices. And so, me being myself, maybe a bit of a rebel, I sort of decided, without necessarily deciding, that this was going to be my goal, my passion to, to work towards helping women in the region become fulfilled, let's say, and be offered choices, be it, employment choices, education choices, who they marry, what they do with their life. And yeah, that's what I've been passionate about all along.
Wow. And so you growing up in a somewhat more, I would say, progressive household than most others in the region was what shaped that experience, and wanted you to have other women and other people have that same experience that you had growing up. It sounds like that's amazing. And I want to talk. So now you've done all this great work. You've been working for all these amazing organizations, and now I want to talk about sort of how you arrived to food and how you arrived to the concept of using food as this vehicle. So from what I understand, Tayybeh began as a one-off sort of pop-up event. So how did it go from a one-off Facebook event to this full-fledged social enterprise that it is today?
It was totally accidental. It was, I never had any experience in business. I'm an anthropologist, that's what I studied. That's what I did my master's in. And, when I arrived in Vancouver in 2014, I was still working on international development. I was a consultant working on various gender-related issues. And then I remember in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, like everybody, was watching the news, and the Syrian crisis was unfolding, and we started getting news of hundreds and hundreds of families arriving to the shores of BC. And at the time, I felt like I just wanted to do something to volunteer, being an Arabic speaker and doing anything to help. And so I volunteered briefly with an organization here in Vancouver that was providing information sessions to the families that were arriving. And so I went and met up with a lot of families and a lot of women who had just arrived. They were still at motels. They weren't assigned housing. Kids were not in school. And so I think, and I had many conversations, and I think that brought me much closer to the experience of these people arriving here. And so I started thinking, what can I do to help these women? And at the time, I wasn't thinking about a business or anything. I was thinking maybe we can arrange for an evening where some Syrian women would cook for locals, for Canadians. That way they would sort of do something fun, meet new people, and sort of break the language barriers and the silos that they were in at the time. And so we arranged for our first pop-up dinner, and it was so simple, really, and so innocent in a way. I contacted 4 Syrian ladies that I met, and I said, "Hey, do you want to cook for a bunch of Canadians?" And then they said, "Sure, why not?" And then we borrowed a restaurant, Tamam, Palestinian cuisine, from some of our friends. We borrowed the restaurant for the evening, and that became, the spot for the dinner. Created a Facebook invite and just left it out there, not knowing what was going to happen. And the tickets for that event sold out extremely quickly. And I remember that evening, the ladies had an incredible time offering their food and seeing people's reactions. And then the guests would come and hug them. And it was just such a warm evening. And we thought, okay, let's do it again. And so, a few months later, we organized another event and doubled the number of invitees and the food and so on. And again, the tickets sold out, I believe, within maybe 4 hours.
Wow.
From 60 guests to 120 guests. Tickets sold out immediately. And then we realized that we were onto a really nice thing here where the ladies could use the skills that they have to cook incredible food, and at the same time meet new people and experience something new. And slowly that sort of became a way for them to be sustainably employed.
Amazing. And that's an amazing story. And I love to hear how something, there's a lot of people who claim to be sort of accidental entrepreneurs. I know I'm one myself, and hearing that journey, and when you make that connection, as it sounds like you did with that very first event, realize that you're sort of onto something. What was tell me like the next step from that process, from having these events? Where did you go into knowing that you wanted to turn this into a fully functioning business versus kind of a pop-up shop?
Yeah, when we started getting messages, so we created a Facebook account, of course, and then we started getting messages from people saying, "Hey, I want to order this food." So, we would receive people saying, "Where can I order this food that I ate at this dinner? Where can I make an order for my office or for my family or whatever?" And we're like, okay, so there is a demand for this. This is not something that people want to try as a one-off. People want this food. And so that's the point when we decided that Tayybeh should be launched as a full service catering company. And, everything, Drew, was completely new to the ladies and to myself, I didn't know how to. Everything from registering the business to finding a commercial kitchen to getting the Vancouver Coastal Health Inspection to what to buy, what equipment, all of these things were very new. And so we learned everything really by doing and by, sinking our teeth and hands fully into it. And from that point forth, once we got the kitchen and sort of launched Tayybeh properly, everything grew very steadily. And again, 110% organically. It was just word of mouth. People would try the food, love it so much. They would also love the story, and they would tell their friends or their neighbors or, their office mates about it. And that's how Tayybeh grew.
Incredible. And I think what's important for a lot of our listeners to know about you and your background is that at the time when all this was going on, you actually were new to Vancouver yourself, or relatively new. I mean, you came in, I believe, 2014, if I'm not mistaken. And in a very short time span, you had been doing all this volunteer work. You became a mom, and you started a business, right? And now where you haven't really been here. It's a new environment for you. So how did you manage to juggle all of those things going on during this really, really crazy, exciting period?
I'm still trying to figure that one out, Drew. I don't know. I think first of all, I have an incredibly supportive partner. My husband is incredibly supportive. He's been supportive about Tayybeh since day one, and he's been, encouraging and supportive and doing everything from taking the kids, on evenings where I had to work late, or, listening to me cry when I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. So he's been incredibly supportive since day one. And I think working so closely with Taybeh's chefs has also been, let's say a fuel, seeing them change and evolve and, let's say, blossom from when I first met them to where they are now, the confidence that they have, the passion and love that they have for their work and for their food and for their culture, and knowing about them and their families and the trial and tribulations of being here, being newcomers and settling in here, and all of these things. It gives you this power. It gives you this fuel, and you look at the ladies and how incredibly hard they work, and you think, I can't relax. I can't relax. I can't be lazy. If they work so incredibly hard, and these women are the anchors of their families, then I need to keep up. I have to be able to juggle all of these things. If they can do all of this, work for hours and hours, and still go back to their families and still cook more food and still take care of their kids, all of that. So, yeah.
So they in a sense were part of your motivation to do all of this and keep going and keep pushing. It's so critical. It's amazing.
Oh my goodness, 100%. If I didn't feel that the work that we were doing was helping them and supporting them in so many ways, and seeing them and everything they're going through, but still coming to the kitchen and still doing all this work and still working so passionately, I mean, I don't know what I would be doing, because again, Tayybeh is a passion project. It's not something that I set out to do, and it's not something like I never planned on launching a business here in Vancouver. It's just my proximity to them that gives me the energy and the fuel and the fire to keep going, really.
And for yourself, I mean, as you've transitioned from, an academic world, international development and consultation, and now you're running a food business and a social enterprise. So talk to me about sort of that skill set and that transfers. Was there anything that you found transferred over, or did you feel like you sort of had to start fresh and learn all these brand new skills?
I would say it's a mixed bag. I think coming from my professional background, what I brought with me is certainly familiarity, working with women who are of, who are from the Middle Eastern culture. So I know, I'm familiar with this culture, and I think that's helped a great deal making Tayybeh work, because you kind of need to know, especially when working with people who have themselves never worked before. All of the women we work with are housewives and moms. And so they were also new to the idea of employment. and you kind of need, there's a two-way street where you kind of need to understand how they think in order to help them and give them the best foot, put their best foot forward in order to get the best work out of them as well, and understand their challenges and so on. So I think that definitely is something I came with, and probably because I spent years and years and years doing meticulous research, that's also helped me maybe learn a little bit quicker, maybe I'm not going to say learn the ropes, but learn quickly what I need to learn in order to dive headfirst into this. But definitely I had no business experience or acumen whatsoever before starting, and so everything from working out crunching numbers and learning how to market and all of these things, these are all very, very new to me, and these are things and skills that I myself, and I would say everybody on the team, had to learn by doing. And I know very well that I made mistakes at the beginning, and I'm sure I still do, but you make a mistake and you learn and move on, and that's how it's been.
Absolutely, and I love that you're sort of an advocate of learn by doing, because I feel like that experience is the best teacher, as they say, move fast and break things, and that's how you sort of figure things out, figure out what doesn't work really quickly, and you can learn a lot more if you agree by planning and researching before taking that first step. And it has to be the balance. And I want to talk a little bit more about the your chefs, your employees, this community that you speak about so passionately. I love hearing you talk about it. So as someone yourself who has immigrated to this country, I want you to speak a little bit to our listeners. What should they know about your chefs and that refugee experience, and how it might differ from some other immigration experiences?
I mean, the refugee and the immigration experience are just completely different. I mean, you imagine yourself, Drew, as a chef. You decide you want to go to France for a few years, to learn culinary skills. And, so for that, you plan, you take French lessons, what you want to pack, what possessions you want to keep, what you want to sell. You make, contacts with people in France and so on. Whereas if all of a sudden you literally have to up and leave because your life and the life of your family is at risk if you stay, and somehow you end up in China where you don't speak the language and you're expected to survive and function and, be a productive member of society. And the only thing you have are probably, is probably a suitcase maybe of stuff. It's a completely different experience. And I think the major difference there is choice. If you immigrate, then you choose to leave, you choose and you plan and you know what you're doing. But a refugee just lands somewhere and he or she is expected to survive and cope and thrive and so on, but they don't have the necessarily the skills. They don't know the society oftentimes that they're going to land in, and there's so much learning and adjustment that they need to do and do really, really quickly. And the expectation that they need to function really quickly and not be a burden on society, these expectations are huge. And when you don't speak the language, the culture is new, even the job market is new, that's a huge weight on your shoulders. So it's completely different. And sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I want to let you finish your thought. We have actually a fantastic video clip that I'd love to show that really illustrates that point that you just made about that experience, but also how you're helping these women navigate this. So I'm going to actually ask that they show this clip now. I think our visitors will love it.
تجربتي مع طيبة أحلى شيء بفانكوفر. هيك عيلة صغيرة متماسكة مترابطة مع طيبة.
With Tayybeh, they had motivation to learn how to take the SkyTrain, to go somewhere where they can meet other ladies and spend time with them and work and do something productive, and something they're also proud of. The ladies now went from being housewives to being income generators.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing clip to see the women sort of on the job in this great, warm, supportive environment. I mean, it speaks so much to how important it is what you're doing, and such an important part. And I want to talk a little bit about sort of the empowerment that you mentioned and the healing. I mean, this is a very traumatic sort of experience for them to go through all these things that you mentioned. So, what has it been like for you getting to witness you being a part of their healing through this platform that you've built?
First of all, it's been really an honor and a privilege for me to be part of their journey, and seeing the women I started working with 4 or 5 years ago, how they were and how they are now. It's a beautiful thing to behold, and I always like to say that I believe, and I've been told by them that working at Tayybeh is not only a source of income or financial security and all of that. It's, as you mentioned, it is healing. It is healing for these people who've lost so much, and these women who've lost so much, to find a place, a workplace where they have a reason to wake up in the morning. They have a place to go to where they can connect with other women from other cities, but from the same country. And they speak the same language, and they reminisce over food and recipes. And, there's something very healing about work, about going, walking into that kitchen at 9 a.m. and leaving at whatever time, and you have things to do. It helps your mind calm down and helps your mind heal, and you feel like you're a productive member of society. You're not sitting at home, still suffering from PTSD or depression, or there's a lot of mental health that I believe is being healed just through this experience and them replicating the food of their country in this kitchen.
Absolutely. Food is such a powerful healing entity. It's such a source of connection. It connects people together of all walks of life. And you notice that with that first event, you're connecting these women to a very different culture, to a very different people that are not familiar with that food and not familiar with them. And it brings them together. And you've created that mission, that purpose that's giving them that healing. And it's just such a wonderful thing to see. And I'm so happy to share it with our listeners today. And not only are you, providing this healing and support for your own employees, but you're also active in providing support for other communities. I know in Fort McMurray in 2017, there was a devastating situation there, and you've been providing meals to the communities during the current pandemic. So with this culture of giving, is that just something that came naturally to you, or tell me a little bit about how you built this community of support?
I have to say, this culture of giving and generosity is part and parcel of the Middle Eastern and the Syrian culture. If you're Middle Eastern, and I will say Syrian because now I know this culture so much better as I've worked with the ladies, you have to be generous to a fault. So there isn't any event or anything happening in the city where they don't come to me and say, can we do something? Can we give? Can we donate? It is in their nature to be giving. And yes, we've donated to Fort McMurray. And then I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, we were CC'd in a lot of emails talking about food security, especially in the downtown east side, and how so many people are out of the job, and so many people can't afford to eat, and people are looking even in the garbage and things like that. And, it was very distressing to hear. And so we found an opportunity through Van City to create meals for members of the community, be it in the downtown east side or other communities around. And the ladies did that with so much love. And I really, again, I see them and I see, once so much has been taken away from you, you don't take anything for granted. And you feel like you need to give back, to the country and the community that's received them with so much welcome, so much warmth, so much love. They always feel that there's a need to give back, and perhaps also maybe to prove, that they are here to be productive, not to be a burden, and not to be sitting there at home just hanging out. It's something that we're very, very serious about.
Absolutely, and you do a fantastic job. And I want to talk a little bit about the food itself, the amazing, delicious food that these women produce under your guidance. And I guess my question would be, what are some of these major misconceptions that diners here in the West might have about Middle Eastern cuisine or Syrian cuisine specifically?
Yeah. So I would say maybe two things. People automatically associate Middle Eastern food with meat, just grilled meat, and that is not true. Middle Eastern food, first of all, is Middle Eastern cuisine or Syrian cuisine, I will say, is massive. There's a huge repertoire of vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free dishes, meals, recipes, and it is a cuisine that caters to all palates and all dietary restrictions. So it's certainly not all meat. And I think the other misconception too is that people always associate Middle Eastern food or Levantine food or Syrian food with sort of quick food, like fast food, like your shawarma wrap or your falafel wrap. And that is absolutely not true. Again, in the Syrian repertoire, so many recipes are made by cooking the food slowly. There's slow cooked food. There's food that is made with so much precision. It takes time, and the ladies certainly take their time with the food that they prepare. So it's not all fast and wrap and French fries and go. It's really nothing like that. It's food made with a lot of precision, a lot of dedication, and oftentimes time.
And I hope our listeners are seeing these beautiful images that we're showing on the screen right now as you're describing it. As someone, I've tasted the food and I know how delicious and just so flavorful that your products are. It's incredible. And you touched on the fact that, just with Syrian cuisine, there's so much diversity and so much range there. So how does that regional diversity sort of inform the food, the decisions that you make on what to serve at Tayybeh?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can think of Syrian food almost like Italian food, where there's so much regionalism. So the ladies we work with come from different cities around Syria. And when we first started, and maybe up until now, there's this ongoing discussion about the best way to execute this dish, because the same dish is prepared differently. It could have the same name, but it could be prepared differently if you come from Damascus or from Aleppo or from Latakia or from another city. There's so much diversity. They're all delicious recipes, but there's a lot of diversity and a lot of regionalism, and the way that the spices are prepared or the ratios between the different ingredients and so on. That makes a whole lot of difference between the different dishes. And so when we first started, we wanted to decide on a menu for Tayybeh. And I cannot begin to tell you how many conversations and how many fires I had to put out, because I had to decide for, let's say, the kibbeh, which recipe it's going to be, or which recipe we're going to choose, for this dish or that dish. And so we had to create a menu that represents the different cities that the ladies come from almost equally. And it took a long time to get them all to tweak the way they prepare the recipe and to standardize, because it was not natural for them. There was a lot of training that we had to do in order for us to be able to, for all the ladies to be able to cook the recipes in the same way, so that there's consistency in how we do it.
And I'm sure, I mean, to be a fly on the wall with some of those, debates during the menu creation process, I'm sure every household probably has their own way, a unique way of doing it, their own slightly different recipe. And that's what's amazing and beautiful about it. But, having to now streamline that into a consistent business approach. But that's that beautiful intersection of business and passion. And of course, everybody just wants it to be the best, right? So everybody's heart was in the right place. And, I want to talk a little bit now. I mean, we've talked so much about all these amazing things that you're doing to others. You've devoted so much of your time to helping others and other people in need. So, I want to talk about you a little bit. What do you do to make sure that you have time to unwind and relax? What are some of your things you do to take care of yourself?
I'd be lying if I said I get to relax a lot. I have 3 children. I have Tayybeh, and I have a 6-year-old and 9 months old. So so I can't say I have a lot of time to relax, but what I try to do as often as I can is to see people that I love, which has been a bit, again, difficult over the past year with the pandemic. But I try to spend time with people that I love and whose company I enjoy in order to maybe disconnect a little bit from the pressure, be it, face to face or via Zoom or even on the phone. Just connecting with people that I care about, who make me laugh. I try to laugh as much as I can, and also I try to do as much exercise as I can when I can. So Zumba classes, or maybe online yoga, or maybe just take a walk around the block. And the one thing I think we all need to do is to disconnect from the phone sometimes, even for just an hour a day. I'm guilty of not being good at that, but I try as often as I can. I think that helps a lot.
It's always a work in progress with shutting down those notifications, isn't it? Especially as a business owner, right? Isn't it so tough? But you have to be determined and resolute, I suppose. And
and try to be mindful when you say, okay, this is an off moment, and just try to stick to it and be mindful of what's happening here, because it's very easy to get sucked into what's happening elsewhere, what's happening in the kitchen, what's happening in the business, what I need to do, and so on. So it's important to train one's brain to disconnect a little bit and be present. Very challenging, but very important.
Amazing. And we have a couple questions before we're going to get into some audience questions here. So, and we ask everyone that comes on the well, as you mentioned, food is the great connector. It's the great healer. And what is your favorite go-to meal when you're feeling like you need something warm and comforting to make yourself feel supported and feel safe?
Honestly, I love sushi.
Nothing wrong with that.
Sushi is probably my go-to meal any day if I want to feel good. But if we were talking from the Middle Eastern repertoire, God, there's so many I don't know. It would probably be our cheese sambusaks. They're beautiful, sort of golden puffs, if you will, that are filled with cheese and crispy and absolutely amazing. It's like a hug. I love them.
That's going to be on my next order for sure. I don't think I've sampled that one yet. Thank you for the tip. And for everyone listening out there, please consider trying that. That sounds amazing. We have a question, Nihal, that's come in from Instagram. So the question is, how have the Tayybeh women adjusted to life in Vancouver? Were there any major experiences of culture shock?
I mean, maybe culture shock is a bit of a strong word. There's definitely been a lot of adjustment that they've had to do because, again, everything is new. Taking the SkyTrain was new, right? Learning how to ride the bus in Vancouver was new. Learning to be employed, as I mentioned, was new. I think with the, let's say, the adults, so the moms and the dads, they had. They were slower to adjust, because of the language barrier. The kids, caught on in no time because their English skills are much better. And, they go to school, so they interact with sort of a diverse mix at school. With the parents, it might have been a little bit more challenging. I can't think of culture shocks, but I think slowly they had to get used to the way things are done. Maybe another thing, too, was the weather, having to get accustomed to all the rain here. Took some time as well.
And another question coming in, is there anyone, are you the only ones right now that are doing this very focused, specialized Syrian cuisine? Are there any other places? Obviously, we want people to try Tayybeh. Any other places you'd recommend for our viewers to check out that are doing great Middle Eastern food?
I don't know if there are any other Syrian restaurants here in Vancouver. I know there have been similar projects or social enterprises that have popped up across Canada. I know of a popular one in Ottawa and somewhere else, maybe in Alberta. I know of those, but I don't know if there's another restaurant that is necessarily Syrian.
Wow. So you guys are trailblazers here, certainly in Vancouver. Absolutely. Well, we have another question from Instagram here I'm going to get to. What is the most valuable lesson that you've taken away from the Tayybeh experience? That's a tough question for you to answer, I bet.
There's so many. Probably a lesson in human resilience. You know, again, working with the ladies so closely. First of all, I realize how insanely privileged I am. You know, my life, who I am, and you know, my family, all of that. And I don't mean necessarily privileged. I mean that I haven't lost loved ones to war. I haven't lost my home. I haven't lost my possessions. I chose to travel. But working so closely with women who have all lost a cousin or a son even, or a husband, all of these. And again, you know, only a few years later, they are in this kitchen, they're laughing through the pain. And again, I don't think any of the ladies we work with have received any sort of professional counseling or any of that, you know. And I think they're just going through the daily grind, and they come to the kitchen and they smile and they laugh and they just live life, and they focus on the kids that they have here, and you know, thriving here and making sure their kids grow up and go to school and all of that. And when you see all of that and how they can start another life and recreate life here despite all of these challenges, you think, I really have nothing to complain about, you know?
Wow. Amazing. And we have a question coming in from Facebook now, and the question is, I think you might have touched on this, your personal favorite dish from the Taipei menu.
It might be the cheese sambusak. There's so many. It's very difficult because all of our food is delicious, I have to say, but probably the cheese sambusaks. They're small, crunchy, and yummy.
Amazing. And can you describe, and can you, I'm going to totally butcher the pronunciation, but can you please describe the red pepper dip that you produce and give the proper pronunciation on the air once and for all of what that is?
So that glorious red pepper dip is called mahamara. And that the root of the word mahamara is ahmar, which is the Arabic word for red. And that is a spread that we make out of sweet red peppers, lots of olive oil, pomegranate molasses, gluten-free breadcrumbs, and a whole lot of love. And it's absolutely divine. Frankly, I had never heard of it before working with the Syrian ladies. I wasn't familiar with it, and I think it's new here. I don't know if anybody else is making it, but it's absolutely divine. It's the biggest discovery.
It's incredible. As someone, I mean, we use it at UpMeals. We go through vast quantities of it, putting it on absolutely everything that we can. The flavor is just out of this world on so many things. I would say if our listeners have one takeaway, it's to try that dip. You have it available in retail stores. Do you mind listing some of the stores you have that available in?
No, we sell this dip and also our smoked eggplant dip at various stores. We're at Nada, the bulk store. We're at Vegan Supply, Surrey and Chinatown. We're at Be Fresh. We're at Stong's, and so many others. The list is on the website, all of the stores that we're in, and we're hoping to get into many more stores in the coming few months. And of course, all of these dips and our hummus and other products are available at the farmer markets that we're at every weekend.
Amazing. And where can our listeners go to learn more about yourself and about the Taipei team?
Yeah, probably go to the internet. They can find out more about us on Taipei's website. And then, of course, if you go onto YouTube, there have been quite a few videos, clips, and documentaries made about us and our work. So you can learn a lot more there. And also, we have a cookbook that is in the making that unfortunately it's come out this year, but we're a little bit delayed because of COVID, but hopefully it'll come out next year. And it's a beautiful book that merges the stories of our chefs with their local recipes. It's a beautiful piece of work.
Amazing. I can't wait to see that. Put me on the list for the early subscribers for that list whenever it's ready. I can't wait to see that. Nihal, thank you so much for joining us, answering all of these questions and sharing the amazing work that you're doing with Tayybeh. It was an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Drew, for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you for asking such thoughtful questions. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Food as a social enterprise. You know, we talk about this concept a lot on the Wellness Hub, but it's one thing to talk about it. It's another to execute on it, which is why we value so much having entrepreneurs like Nihal on the program to talk about their unique journey and experience. It's our hope that stories like Nihal's inspire you and encourage you to look at the social impact of the businesses you frequent and where you spend your hard-earned money. I read a report recently that says that in the next 20 years, the vast majority of businesses that don't have social initiatives or a positive impact on the environment will no longer exist. Think about that. 20 years, the vast majority of businesses that don't have social initiatives or positive impact will no longer exist. Now, there's a number of factors that led to that conclusion, but the overwhelming factor is coming from, you guessed it, you, the consumer. Consumers are better educated on social responsibility and sustainability than ever before. There's more information available to make better purchasing decisions than ever before. And do any of us see this slowing down anytime soon? Not likely. So my question to you is, why wait 20 years? Why not start right now? Why not ask the businesses you support for their social responsibility initiatives? At the very least, why not challenge more businesses to do more today? You, the consumers, hold the power to the future of business and ultimately the future of a big part of our planet. I encourage you all to check out and support Tayybeh and learn more about Nihal and her team to see a shining example of this in action. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I'd like to see more great conversations like this. Please remember to like and comment and subscribe or follow us on YouTube, Instagram, or LinkedIn at UpMeals. We'll see you here next Wednesday, right here on the Wellness Hub for another great conversation. Until then, I'm Drew Munro. Take care and be well.